don't, I think the size of cabinet is determined largely by the chief executive. That's the president. As to whether Parliament has got the powers to reduce the number of cabinet ministers, yes, the number of cabinet ministers are brought to Parliament for approval, but you see there is a challenge even in the Parliament itself. The parliamentary committee that vets ministers has remained an exclusive dark room to even the whole Parliament. It's a committee chaired by the Speaker of Parliament and other committee members. The report of that committee, the only report that is not brought to Parliament for approval. Therefore, the sessions of that committee are closed sessions. So it's crowded in secrecy, it's crowded in a kind of, because ideally a report of the committee, of any committee of Parliament, should be brought for full approval by the whole House. But the Appointments Committee of Parliament, whose report, which is chaired by the Speaker and sometimes by the Deputy Speaker and its members, one, it is conducted in secrecy, not open to the media, to the public participation. Contrary to what is happening in the other East African states like Kenya, is public vetting. Its report is never debated in Parliament and is never approved by Parliament. Therefore, the question of who becomes a minister and how they are appointed remains a secrecy and an exclusive club. We have argued to suspend. That rule is not entrenched, can be suspended like any other. But even this year, I attempted myself to have it suspended. It was rejected by the Speaker. Even the anomaly that the Speaker chairs it and the one who should receive the report itself is self-defeating. So the whole way we constitute our government is wrong from the word go. Now, as to the numbers, we only approve the President, the Vice President, and the Deputy Prime Minister. As to the numbers of cabinet ministers, the Constitution gives a latitude to, because ideally our Constitution talks about 22 ministers and the equivalent ministers of state. The rest of these other ministers are not in the Constitution. They are manufacture of the head of state and by the President.
You have been a shadow Minister of Finance, so you probably know what size of our national budget goes towards cabinet. Yeah, on average, as Shamima said, take on average of spending about 60 billion, 60 million per each minister. And that is on top of all the facilities they've mentioned. A 500 brand new car, he has bodyguards, so many of them, because of city, have lead cars, they have servants, they have everything. So when we spoke about RAPEX, rationalization of government agencies and public expenditure, the public is being conned around rationalization of agencies, and the discussion is not ensuring on public expenditure. We had come up with a document that if we rationalize public expenditure and cut out extravagance, we would save a whooping 5 trillion annually out of the budget. And that's when we had the smaller budget of 48. Now with the budget of 72, if it's a real budget, then you can save fair about 10 trillion. Therefore, the whole debate on 1 trillion being saved out of rationalization is just part of the story. Where we want the president to go to the extent, if he is serious about cutting public expenditure, reduce the size of cabinet, reduce the size of parliament, reduce the size of local governments, go out of your way, remove all unnecessary advisors that the president has got, remove all unnecessary offices that are a duplication of what we have in other departments. Go down the line, do away with classified expenditure. You will have money. The cost of building a brand new hospital, turnkey district hospital, is about 35 billion. Just imagine how many hospitals would build. A classroom, a standard classroom, goes on average of about 60 to 70 classroom, just classroom with the board, with the ceiling, with the extra, about 60 million. Therefore, each month, a minister in Uganda is equal to a classroom that should have been built somewhere, and instead, the vehicle of a minister in Uganda of 500 to 600 builds 10 classrooms. So when you say minister traveling, you should always know that 10 classrooms are on the move. And therefore, that's what it means. And in our view, those are unnecessary ministers that we have. So many of them, by the way, are redundant. Some just report to their parliament, you find them in the lobby, they will sit with them in the canteen. They are not doing any much work. Some of the advisors of the president will never see the president. So for our humble view is that if the executive, if NRM government, even the whole question of a cabinet minister being a member of parliament, I think we should separate the two. And that requires a constitutional amendment. So we should separate the two. So that when you're a minister, you are a minister. When you're a member of parliament, you're a member. But some of these expenditures are fair. Can you imagine? You have Right Honorable Edward Sekandi. He earns a salary as a presidential advisor. He earns a salary as a former vice president. He earns a salary as a former speaker. He earns a salary as a former deputy speaker. Ideally, that cannot happen in any other corporate or any other soberly and rationally run government. You choose whatever is higher, and you earn one. You can't